All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this year's ODOT Technology Conference. I do want to remind everybody that this meeting or session will be recorded. Um, in this session, we're actually going to go over the Ohio DOT environment. We have three speakers today. Starting off, we have Jack Kerstetter. Jack is a graduate of The Ohio State University College of Engineering with a bachelor's degree in computer science. Jack has been with ODOT for a long time and was one of the original CAD guys. Jack currently works in the Office of CAD and Mapping Services, working with ProjectWise and assisting with other CAD projects. Our second presenter is going to be Kyle Entz. Kyle Entz is a transportation engineer for the Ohio Department of Transportation's Office of CAD and Mapping Services and an adjunct professor at Columbus State Community College in the Civil Engineering Survey Department. Kyle is a registered professional engineer and a survey intern with the state of Ohio and is a 2014 graduate of Ohio State University with a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering. Throughout his time at ODOT, Kyle has been involved with the remote sensing and survey aspects of the office. Specializing in aerial and terrestrial LiDAR, Kyle has been an integral member in developing workflows and innovative techniques for point cloud relative deliverables. More recently, Kyle has been assisting with CAD training and support for both internal and external users during ODOT's Open Roads Designer and ProjectWise implementation. I will be the last presenter. My name is Brandon Williams. I also work for the Ohio Department of Transportation as an information technologist in the Office of CAD and Mapping Services. I've graduated from DeVry University with a bachelor's degree in computer information systems with a specialization in information system security. I also pursued a master's information systems management degree at Keller Graduate School of Management, and I work closely with Jack and Kyle on the ProjectWise administrative side, writing PowerShell and programming scripts to automate tasks for our ProjectWise environment. So I'm going to go ahead and hand this off to Jack, and we're going to go ahead and get started.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Can people hear me? I guess so. Yeah, thanks for coming. As Brandon mentioned, we're going to do an overview of ProjectWise here. If any of you have set in on any of the ones we're doing for the districts, a lot of this is going to be similar. There's some stuff at the end about some scripting that's a little different. So let's get started. Anyhow, ProjectWise is it's Bentley Systems Engineering Document Management System. Provides a single source for project data. They would call it single source of truth. We're moving our CAD information from district iDrives into a cloud-hosted system. Improves our access to the most up-to-date information. There are multiple levels of security and controls for determining permissions. It has a built-in reference file healer for CAD drawings. So if you're using references in CAD drawings, you can move things around without losing those references. It has integration into Office 365, Esri, and some other applications. So when Jerry Ray came back to ODOT, he was preaching the concept of one ODOT. So at the time, we were starting our implementation of ProjectWise after doing a pilot. So we took that concept and tried to incorporate it into how we set up ProjectWise. So we set it up as a statewide based system. In our pilot, we used districts, groups, and users. And when we went statewide, we decided that we were going to simplify the groups, and this is kind of a picture of what the layout looks like. And you see there's accounting, construction, design groups, and then on the right is the template for a design project, and the structure mirrors what the high-level groups are. So you see there's a 100 planning folder, and then there's a planning group, and if you're in the planning group, you have access to the 100 planning folder throughout any project in ODOT. So when we started our implementation, there were some CAD issues that we were trying to resolve. So one of them was CAD standards delivery. We had 13 different servers with CAD standards, and we were trying to keep those all in sync and up to date. ProjectWise enables managed workspaces, so you can actually have your CAD standards inside ProjectWise and manage them in one single location. Another thing we were working on was a statewide plan vault. We had a plan index viewer application written by Scott Finney in District 6, and it was having some issues. It hadn't been upgraded in a while, and as we went from Windows 7 to Windows 10, components of it were failing. We wanted to pull that all together in a single system, so we're working on that. We had questions from estimating construction about delivery of CAD drawings to the field. It was hit or miss for them. They were always having to go back and try to track down things, so we wanted to streamline the delivery of the CAD information to estimating construction. And then we have many consultants doing ODOT work, and a lot of the consultants are ProjectWise users, and none of our custom applications that we wrote for MicroStation or GeoPack would work inside of ProjectWise, and we didn't have a way to resolve that since we didn't have ProjectWise ourselves. So that was another reason we wanted to take a look at implementing it. So a little ProjectWise history. Here were some key dates. In '95, Bentley acquired Teammate, which was a document management software created by a company in Finland. And they bought half the company at that point in time, and then in '96 they completed the acquisition of the company, and then in '98 they rebranded it ProjectWise. So ProjectWise as a product has been around for 22 years. In between there, the Department of Transportation did a evaluation of civil design software and settled on GeoPack as the standard for civil design for the department. And I threw that in there because back in that time frame, 98, 99, somewhere around there, we went to a hands-on training for ProjectWise. And one of the things that it would not do at that time was handle a GeoPack GPK file. So you could use it for MicroStation, but you couldn't really use it for GeoPack. So we decided not to pursue it at that time. But we continue to keep our eye on ProjectWise, and in 2009 we had a formal ProjectWise proposal on the table, which we did not pursue. And even before that, in 2005, we had a pilot proposal to look at it, and did not do that at that time either. But in 2015, we went to Tech Council to request to do a ProjectWise pilot to take a look at it, and we liked what we saw. So in 2018, we started a ProjectWise implementation. So here's a list of some of the ProjectWise users, North American consultants that are currently ProjectWise users, and they go from up there at the top, Jacobs Engineering, which has 17,000 some users and 38 servers worldwide, down to some smaller companies that just have a single server in their environment. And then this is a list of some of those consultants that are ODOT consultants, and the ones that I highlighted here are ones that we talked to during our pilot phase or even before. We visited Jacobs at the time. It was a CH2M, and saw their implementation. We working on a project again at Fleming. Mead and Hunt was implementing ProjectWise at the same time. So we had several conversations with them about that, and we visited DLZ and Burgess and Nyepel and talked with them as consultants about their implementation. So also some of the other DOTs that are ProjectWise users that we've had conversations with. Connecticut and Michigan are longtime users, probably more than 10 years. Kentucky had a web-based plan vault application for searching for plan vaults, and we were very interested in that, and we're actually trying to implement that now. We've got something in beta that works in a similar manner. Utah DOT is another a long time user that we've had conversations with. And then the Work Sharing Infrastructure Professionals Group, the WIP group, meets on a monthly basis. It's a ProjectWise administrators group based mostly in the western states, with consultants from the western states and Canada involved. And we just meet and discuss ProjectWise issues with them on a monthly basis. And then Bentley shared the ProjectWise DOTs that currently use ProjectWise, and I don't know if you can see the color coding there, but the blue ones are hosted environments and the green is on premises. And we are a hosted environment. We're storing our information in a data center in Chicago, Azure Cloud Data Center in Chicago. So there's a couple different ways to get into ProjectWise. There's a desktop client called ProjectWise Explorer, and that's what most of our designers are used to, and it is for doing CAD work. And there's a web-based client as well, and it's not for doing CAD work. You can use Office 365. It's got PDF markup tools. You can upload, download documents into it, and all you need is a web browser to get to it, but you can't really do CAD design work with that. You can download files and work on them independently, but you can't open directly from the web interface into the CAD product. So here's what the setup looks like. So you have the cloud up there, which is the Azure Data Center. And then we have caching servers in the district. We have not, there's a list there, but we have not implemented all of those. We have 5 of them now. And the central office caching server is a caching and routing server. So it is where the caching servers get their routing tables. And that's local cache storage of the files as you open them. And all the rights, though, go back to the cloud. And then this is a diagram of user onboarding. I don't know whether it's correct or not, but we had to draw all this up, so I wanted to show it. I don't know where else you would show somebody a slide like this, so we pulled it out specifically for this. But anyhow, for internal users, there's a connection client that you use to get into all Bentley products. It's like the licensing piece. And when you log into the connection client, it automatically puts you into ODOT's Bentley accounts, and then we're federated, so there's a token that's passed and checked against our Active Directory to authenticate you. And when you log into ProjectWise Explorer and click on the data source, it also automatically puts your account into ProjectWise. And then at that point, somebody, usually at the district, has to add you into a group to give you permissions to the different areas in a ProjectWise project. So if you are a planning person, somebody at the district would put you into the planning group or the design group or the survey group, or multiple groups if that's your role in the district. So most of it's automated, and then the last piece is just getting you in the right group. For external users, we have to create their accounts in ProjectWise and then assign them to a consultant group, and then that gets assigned to a project when we create it. If a consultant's involved, we have a creation application that does that, and it will apply that group to the permissions they need on a particular project. So I'm going to turn it over to Kyle, and he's going to run through the ProjectWise Explorer, and then Brandon's going to finish up. So.
Yeah, thanks, Jack.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's important that we talk a little bit about the client, because then we can start to break down a little bit of our data source structure and then where we actually store and how we store our data. So that's going to kind of tie into Brandon's piece at the end with a little bit of the automation that we've started to implement with ProjectWise. So like Jack mentioned, in order to use this desktop client, the ProjectWise Explorer, we're going to log in through the connection client. So it's basically our gateway into all of Bentley's cloud services. We can get our licensing and then access into ProjectWise as well. If we were going in through the web, which Brandon will talk a little bit about later, it still uses that same account type setup. So we're using our federated accounts with our ODOT email addresses, and then using that Windows single sign-on authentication to be able to obtain our licenses through that connection client. So kind of just a little recap of what Jack mentioned. So our ProjectWise data source. So if you open ProjectWise Explorer, we have 3 data sources in our Ohio DOT environment. The first one is our Ohio DOT archive. So like Jack mentioned, this is our read-only repository for all of our completed plan sets. So you don't really access this data source directly like you typically would a file share or something like that on the network. We're going to access this through some of our different applications. So we have a right-of-way application, an online web app called ORO, and that accesses all of our right-of-way plans that are housed inside that DOT archive. And Jack kind of mentioned a little bit that we're in the process of working on a full plan archive for all of our construction plans. That's going to be outward facing and accessible to the public as well. So a lot of time spent at the districts researching and collecting all of these old plan sets to be able to deliver to people. So we're trying to move towards that self-service, be able to download right when you want it to your local machine, no matter where you are, whether you're inside ODOT's network or outside. So that's what we're doing inside that Ohio DOT archives data source. The next one is going to be where most of the ODOT work is going to be done, project-related work, and it's the Ohio DOT projects. So this is our active projects directory. If you're familiar with the iDrive at a district level, like Jack mentioned, we have those 13 different iDrives for all the districts and then central office. This is going to replace that with that single source of truth for project data across ODOT. So all of our projects are going to be housed here throughout their entire life cycle. And we'll talk a little bit about that life cycle and how we can keep that data together from its inception all the way until its retirement in the end of that session or that project work. Then we also have a Ohio DOT training and testing area. So this is a nice sandbox area for any of our training classes that doesn't step on any of our Ohio DOT projects. So it's a nice area where we can use for training classes. If you want to go back and do some of the self-guided, self-paced tutorials that we've put on our wiki page, which we'll talk a little bit about that at the end, and give some of that information where users can see some of that data. So it's a nice area that has the same permissions, same folder structure as our Ohio DOT projects location, but also allows you to be able to work at your own pace on non-project related activities. So I'm going to kind of focus in a little bit more on the Ohio DOT projects, or where all the bulk of our CAD engineering projects are going to be housed. So we have a folder structure inside the Ohio DOT projects. And I'm going to kind of glaze through these first ones and then kind of go back and talk a little bit about their importance a little bit more. So we have a 00 closed, inactive, and canceled projects. So this is where all of our archive of project data is going to be housed when it's completed or canceled. We have a 01 active projects. So think of this as the project data folder that everybody's been using for the last several years on the iDrive. So that's kind of that direct correlation with that. Then we also have an 02 sold projects. So this is where the project data is going to be located when a project's in its construction phase. Now we have these folders split out because we're going to be keying off of some Ellis dates, and we're pulling those ProjectWise properties from Ellis nightly with a script. So if an Ellis property is updated, we're going to pull that down every night and update it as well inside of ProjectWise. So kind of keeping that data all together with all the information that we can potentially use from Ellis as well. So one of the key dates that we're using for Ellis is to be able to move that project once it's sold into a construction project. It's going to be moved from 01 active to the 02 sold projects folder. So we're going to keep that 01 active projects folder nice and clean with only active design projects. And then once it gets moved into that construction phase, it's going to go to 02 sold. Once construction's closed out, this all happens automatically too, based off keying off those dates. So it's going to move once it's completed out of construction from O2 sold to the 00 closed, inactive, or canceled projects. And that move isn't going to break any of our links. So Jack mentioned kind of on that one of those first slides that we have that reference file resolver. This also works for other documents as well. So ProjectWise uses a global unique identifier to identify each one of those documents inside of ProjectWise. So even as it moves around, that link is not going to break. So it's a really powerful tool that we can use. If I send you a link to a document, as long as it's still inside that data source, even if it gets moved or renamed, we're always going to have that link intact as we're moving through the project phases. The next folder, we have our CAD standards are housed inside our data source now. So we have that managed workspace, and that's stored inside our O3 standards folder. Some users may or may not see this 04 admin configuration. So when they're looking at their data source folders here, they might see an 03 and then an 05 additional projects and might say, oh, what's an 04? It actually houses our access control models and other ProjectWise configurations and documents that we use to be able to manage ProjectWise. Those are housed in that 04 admin configuration folder. And then our last folder is for 05 additional projects. So any of these projects that might not have a PID or have that funding yet inside of Ellis, but with that work still needs to use our OHDOT CAD standards. So there is a location that you can work on projects that aren't necessarily programmed in Ellis yet. It's really important to keep Ellis up to date, not only for the management of that project, but also because we're going to be utilizing some of those dates and project properties associated inside of ProjectWise. So I kind of wanted to mention briefly, Jack showed that folder structure and some of the permissions once we break down that structure a little bit, but that's ProjectWise workflows. So Brandon's going to talk a little bit about that later when we get into more details about some of the automation. But we're able to change document permissions based off of a workflow state. So in this example, we're using the Ohio DOT environmental group, and we have two workflow states that a document can have inside that Ohio DOT folder. Ohio DOT environmental folder. So one of them is public, so it can be in a public state or a confidential state. So if we drill down a little bit deeper to how that works, if we look at our all ProjectWise users, when it's in that public state, all ODOT employees that are in that all ProjectWise users group can have read access to that document. And then, of course, the environmental group still has full access to that document. Now, if we switch the state of that document to confidential, all ProjectWise users have no access to that document. So they wouldn't be able to see it, wouldn't be able to read it, but the environmental group can still have that permission. So we're able to really refine the folder permissions and document integrity based off of workflow states without having to change the entire security structure of ProjectWise. So Brandon's going to talk a little bit more about some of our automation and some of our other workflows that we have when we get into a little bit of the coding side of it. So Brandon is going to talk first about ProjectWise Web, and I'm going to turn it over to Brandon to talk about that section.
Thank you, Kyle. So to start off, I'm going to show you how to get to ProjectWise Web. There's an application called Connection Client that some of you may be familiar with. This is what we use to get into our connected licenses for our connected products. It's also used for ProjectWise Explorer to log in that Kyle mentioned earlier. So on the Connection Client, when logged in, you have the Connect Center button. And when you click on it, it's actually going to take you to this web page to welcome you. But the cool thing about it is you don't even need an application to get to it since it is web-based. All you need to do is go to connect.bentley.com. You'll be prompted for your email address. You type in your email address that you have for ODOT. If you're using an internal computer, it's going to log you in automatically using your AD credentials. So since we are federated, you don't need to type in a password, much like Kyle showed earlier. But if you are off of the DOT's computer and using a personal computer, you would have to use your AD credentials. So you type in your email address, it realizes that you're not using a DOT computer, and then asks you for AD credentials. Moving on, we want to go over the connected project interface. So here I have the connected project. So here I can see I have my project selected. I can also look at my projects. So these are projects that I've been added to. Currently, I'm viewing my favorites. So you can see the blue star right here. It's just showing you my favorites. We are going to look at the 13-13-13 project to demonstrate. So here we are inside the 13-13-13 project. You can see my project details. So here are some project details on the project, how many connections I have, locations, asset types, and such. Here we have our team members. So these are team members that have been associated to this connected project. So you can see that there's 3 of us, myself, Jack, and Kyle included. Here we have external organizations, so we can add external organizations to allow them to add others to the connected project. Moving on, I want to show you some ProjectWise 365 services. So we have several tiles down here on the bottom. We're going to actually take a dive into the share at first and kind of go over that one. So the ProjectWise share, what it essentially is Dropbox. You can create folders and exchange files through the share, which is nice because you can allow internal and external users access without opening any firewalls. So if you go back to the manage members, you can add an external to collaborate, and they can use a share to drop things in there. You don't need ProjectWise Explorer installed, which is really neat. Again, this is web-based, so nothing needs to be installed. But what's even more unique about the share is that it's Office 365 integrated, so you can have simultaneous access to it. So if I open up an Excel file, I can have multiple users accessing the same file as I am, marking up the Excel file or Word document, whatever it might be. So you can have that simultaneous access on the documents. Now, this does use the connected projects permissions. The reason I mention this is because the managed members that you saw on the previous screen, those are the users that have access to the share at the moment. So me, Kyle, and Jack. Moving on, the cool thing about the share is that you can actually synchronize it with your file explorer. So you can see that I have 2 folders here that I've selected, and I can click the 3 dots here and then set these 2 folders for synchronization. So here I have File Explorer on the right. You can actually see the same folders are actually synced to my ProjectWise or File Explorer. So here I have ProjectWise Share and all the folders that I have set up for my synchronization on my connected project shares. So quick and easy way, so I don't have to open up Chrome to access my files. I can just go to File Explorer, which is already 1 click away from when logging in. Moving on, we have the ProjectWise web connection. So what the ProjectWise web connection is it actually creates a connection to the ProjectWise data source. So this is the same data source that ProjectWise Explorer sees, except we're making a connection through the web. You can create, delete, modify files and folders from the ProjectWise web connection. It does use ProjectWise Explorer permissions, so whatever permissions you had in ProjectWise Explorer are going to be the same when you look at ProjectWise web connections. You don't need ProjectWise Explorer installed. This is web-based. Easily access your work areas and projects through the web by clicking on the ProjectWise web connections. This is also Office 365 integrated, so you can open up Excel, Word, PowerPoint, things such on a new tab in the browser. So that is neat as well. Here is actually a technology preview of something coming up with ProjectWise. I wanted to mention this because I thought it was neat. This is ProjectWise Drive is essentially like ProjectWise Share in that synchronization. However, it's creating a data source connection through File Explorer to your connected project. So here, these are actually work areas. This is just an example. This is a work area inside a ProjectWise data source. So I can see that there is a status column, and it shows me if files are checked out or checked in. So I can see in this demo, we could double click and you can see that they're opening up Word. So you can open up a work area, kind of like the ProjectWise web connection, but on File Explorer. So this is a technology preview that's coming. So you can access your projects through the share, so you don't have to go on the web browser. You connect.bentley.com, log in, go to projects, go to favorites, and then get to your projects. Not that that's hard, but it adds a nice convenience to the File Explorer GUI. Moving on, we have issue resolution. So one thing I didn't mention before about the share and ProjectWise web connection is that it does have PDF markup capabilities. Bentley has their own PDF markup tool when you use those two products. Neat thing that comes with it is the issue resolution, which is an easy way to manage, report, and resolve issues with those PDF markups. You don't need any software installed. Again, I want to iterate that this is web-based, so nothing needs to be installed for it. And what it does is actually provides a dashboard to keep and track and analyze any data associated with your PDFs per project. So here's kind of example of the connected project issues resolution. So here we can see that we have a bar graph and have a chart that we can easily see the design behind a PDF. Down here is actually one of the issues. So we can see that this state isn't open. We can see the issue who's assigned to, the actual subject of it. And right here in the linked items, you can click on this and it's going to take you to an issue that was marked in the PDF. Once you fix the issue, you can change the state to closed, and then you can see that in the quick stats, it actually keeps track of what's open and what's closed. So that's neat. And also the average open, so how long things have been open. So this is a nice little dashboard just to keep track of PDF issues part of your project. Here we can actually take a look at other tiles that are part of the connected project. So we have some ProjectWise 365 services that we went over earlier located here, and there's actually some iTwin services a part of a connected project as well. You can see that there's some early access to a few of these, so you can see that Bentley is adding things continuously. Before there were only about 4 or 5 tiles, but now you can see there are much more. So some benefits of ProjectWise Web is that we have access to our ProjectWise data source work areas, and we don't need a VPN connection for that. We don't need to install software and maintain it. All you need is an internet connection and a browser, such as Chrome, to get to your work areas or projects. Another benefit is that we can perform advanced searching. So we can do a more advanced search in File Explorer where you can only search by name. You can do document properties or folder properties to narrow down your search and get better results for what you're looking for. You also have a checkout and end system, which helps with data integrity. You know that when you check out a document, you're the only one working on it and modifying it, so other changes are being made to that document while you have it checked out. You have workflows and states, so we can easily change the state of a document and change that permission depending on our need or business need. It's easy to view attributes and edit attributes in our ProjectWise web. You also have the review and markup PDF. So, Bentley does have that markup tool capability with a connected project, and you have the issue resolutions dashboard that we talked about earlier to go along with that. Also, ProjectWise Web or Connected Project is actually integrated with Microsoft Teams. So if you are able to install that in Teams, so you go to your applications to install ProjectWise, you can actually just work on your project through there. So you don't have to go to the internet browser and search for it. Everything's all in one system. So some other benefits ProjectWise is that now we have a single repository for all projects. There's no more 12 or 13 servers to have different projects and have a different folder structure for all of those projects. You have data integrity with that check-in and out system that I talked about earlier. We now can do external access, so we can allow external users to work on their projects and collaborate with internals all in one system through ProjectWise Explorer or ProjectWise Web. It's easy to give access to them and allow them to work in our environment. There's a secure environment. You're using HTTPS protocol when you're using Chrome for that security. You have managed references. So if you have a reference attached and you move that reference or you rename it, it doesn't break the reference link. Each document has a GUID which links to that instead of a name and the path. So it's easy to manage those references. Again, you have those advanced searching capabilities that we talked about multiple times. Project properties. So every project has their own properties that are pulled from Ellis that are actually updated nightly, which points me to the next topic of automation. There's so many opportunities of automation with ProjectWise that we can easily make better workflows for our processes. You have the audit trail, which is one of my personal favorites. You can look at the audit trail of the document and it tells you the whole document lifecycle, who checked it out, who edited it, and things like that. You also have that managed workspace. So when workspace or the standards are updated and the user goes to check something out, it automatically updates that on their local machine for them. Also, it's a similar GUI to File Explorer, so it's something we've been using for a while. So getting used to the GUI is less time consuming since it is something that we're familiar with seeing. And ProjectWise is cloud-based, and I say that's a benefit because it can be accessed from anywhere. Like I said earlier, you don't need a VPN to access it. You don't even need the software. You can do it all through the web. So it basically gives us a wider range of how we can connect to our projects and work on them. So next, we're actually going to talk about some automation that we have done in ProjectWise. We use PowerShell. So PowerShell is a scripting language. It consists of command line and .NET framework. So most of you may remember the black command line. There's actually things you could do in PowerShell that you could do in command line. So it is built on that platform with .NET framework. So it can accept and return .NET objects just like C#. And it consists of many commandlets to better everyday task, whether it be ProjectWise or not. There's quite a bit of commandlets out there that would help automate any tasks that you may have. So why we went with PowerShell and ProjectWise? Well, Bentley has created many commandlets for ProjectWise. So they have their own SDK, and they release these commandlets to allow other users of ProjectWise to be able to script in PowerShell and make their tasks easier. It's a really strong scripting language, and there's so much you can do with it. You can easily make your own commandlets just by looking at Bentley's Open SDK. So here's actually an example of one of the scripts that we've created, which is the project properties. So to begin the script off, we have the login to data source. So of course, we need to log into our data source, which is ProjectWise. And we also read Ellis for the project, bridge, and roadway data, because those are the project properties that we want to update. So here we go into our process, and essentially it just loops through all the projects and then updates the project properties with changes from Ellis. Once it's done, if errors occur, it sends an email of issues and it logs out a ProjectWise closed that session. So here's another example of a automation that had done, project status. So beginning, we log into our ProjectWise data source. It grabs all the projects in ProjectWise. And when we get into our process, what it is looking at is actually looking at the project status property for the project properties and the closed status. So it moves the project to the appropriate folder structure that we talked about earlier. So the project status, if it's an active, it's going to be one active projects. If the project status equals sold, then it goes into the O2 sold projects. And then the project status is inactive, closed, canceled. You have these 00 closed, inactive, and cancel projects. When a project is, ready to be archived, there is a closed status. When that's not null, it could be CO closed or whatever value it may be. Then it also goes into the 00 closed, inactive, and cancel projects. And to end it off, we send an error log if it exists and sends the report to the ProjectWise team of moved projects. Here's another example of a script that we have automated. So first we're going to log into the data source to ProjectWise, and it gets all our projects. The process starts by looping through all the projects, and it calculates the addendum phase through the sale days. So it actually looks at that addenda schedule, and it calculates when the folder should be open to allow people to, such as designers, to modify or not modify on certain dates, because there are certain due dates that need to be kept up to date. So what it does is it locks the folders to match the addenda schedule. So if something was due this day and the next day it would have been closed, and there could be no more changes done to it. And this is done by using workflow states. To end it off, of course, we look at if any errors occurred, send an email of issues, and it logs out to ProjectWise. All right, so that is all I had today. I didn't know if we had any questions, or if Jack or Kyle, if you'd like to add anything on something I may have missed.
No, I would say, yeah, I don't have anything to add, but if there's any questions, you can shout them out or put them in the chat there.
Well, I know we're what's standing between everyone and the lunch break. But if you guys happen to think of any questions, or if any users are having trouble, we do have an email address that goes to all of the DOT ProjectWise team. And we also do have a form stack, which I'm going to type in the chat as well. And that form stack goes to all of the CAD support staff as well. So if you have any trouble with ProjectWise or any of the other CAD applications, you feel free to use these to be able to contact us. So here's the link to that service request as well.
Yeah, if anybody wants some additional information about ProjectWise to see some of the other things that are in there, please reach out. Be glad to get with you and show you what you'd like to see. So thanks a lot for attending.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we'll hang out in